Hey everybody, it is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, and I am here to do today's Toolbox Tuesday, which I am looking to do a little bit differently still. So I do invite some participation from whoever might be watching. And like I say whoever might be watching, like I didn't just assemble whoever I thought might be available on my friends list and like invited them to come on in. But should anyone out there happen across this live feed and want to ask some questions while I'm on the topic, feel free to do so. I will get as down the rabbit hole as y'all get within the confines as long as I'm willing to be here. So let's do that. Last week, I talked about the first two types of love from the Greek perspective. It was eros and philia. And so, as a caveat, I discussed eros more as a type of madness, and I listed some of the things that people do as a component of eroticism or romance as like symptoms of that madness. So, if you think about how sometimes people seem to really just lose their mind when they enter romantic relationships, that is kind of why Greek philosophers classified romanticism or eroticism as a type of madness and not necessarily as a type of love. However, it does function to make relationships stronger and it can definitely enhance loving relationships. The other kind of love that I talked about last week was called philia, and that was the type of friendship or goodwill. And I talked about the three main reasons that someone might have goodwill towards another person. And it was because they were useful, it's because they were pleasant, and because they were good. And good was because they were rational and virtuous. And then there was also this component of a filial relationship, whereas this goodwill component that is just going back and forth between you and the people you're in this relationship with. And this goodwill feedback generates lots and lots of positive feelings and makes you want to move closer to the people that you're in these types of relationships with. The ones that I want to focus on for today are called storge, agape, and ludus. I pronounce those like that because I listened to the translation on them first because they are Greek words. So that is where I got my pretension from. So storge is familial love, and it is a very specific kind of love that forms when someone is dependent on you. So storge is a strong love that a mom has for a child or that a parent has for a child or that like a brother has for a younger sibling or an older sister has for a younger sibling because of the nature of them needing something from you in order to survive and be well. A shadow component of this type of love is perhaps selecting people as your partners who tend to need you, or you might identify them as someone who might need to be fixed or who might need help. The other kind, agape, is most linked to altruism or charity, and it's love for the sake of love, goodness for the sake of goodness, without any hope for its return. It's talked about in a lot of different contexts outside of like the Greek kind of thinking or the Greek philosophy. So it's talked about in the Bible, it's talked about in Eastern religions, specifically Hindu and the power of Shakti and manifesting like Shiva energy. It's talked about in the balance of yin and yang and how seeking that balance is also an act of altruism. So this is something that has like this cool little golden thread throughout cultures and throughout spiritualities and throughout ways of thinking. And it's doing good for the sake of doing good and nothing else. And that kind of love is considered to be the love that will help humanity in general elevate. And a lot of times it's that kind of love that motivates charity and giving and doing the right things. And it does also promote kind of discussions about moralism and how we live with our ethics. And then the last kind that I want to talk about today is ludus. And this is the kind of love that we have for people, or this is best described as like the experience or the relationship where you can go like days, weeks, months, sometimes maybe even years in between conversations. But when you get together, the bond is as strong and as pure as if ever it was. That is the best way to contextualize Ludus. And so those are the three for today. The interesting thing about these is that the same exercise that I gave last week, the red, the yellow, the green light exercise, what would it take for you to put someone in an erotic relationship? What would make them go from a least likely candidate to a yellow light, okay, maybe candidate? And how would they go from a yellow candidate to a green light, okay, yes, this is the kind of love that I will experience with you? The same thing for filial, the same thing no, to not be able to receive this kind of love from you, to possibly receiving it, in smaller doses or increments. And then how can they go from being someone who gets it on a regular? On site, they just get love. Question: how can knowing about these names for love help in all types of relationships? Boom, that is a great question. So knowing about these names for love can help you clarify expectations. Knowing that you are in a friendship relationship that's built out of goodwill will help you and your partner in this relationship know what to respect as far as behaviors, will know what to respect as far as communication and what types of communication is appropriate. Knowing what kind of relationship you're in helps you determine what kind of pet names are appropriate. Right? So consider that you have a love name or a pet name for many different kinds of people. That is not just restricted to one kind of love. But knowing what type of love will help you determine whether you are calling someone bae or if you're calling them bruh. Good question. Any other questions? That was dope. Or also, when it comes to different kinds of behaviors, what are some behaviors that are like appropriate as far as the different types of love? So if you consider like a unilove behavior like a hug, how can you perform this in a way that one helps you recognize your lane and helps someone else also clarify their lane, right? So if you are in a brotherly filial relationship with someone, that hug can be very dynamic. But if that person is a filial relationship yellow light person, it might be a three pats and a let it go kind of day. So that's an example of how your body language can communicate also the intimacy that you are up for in a relationship. What else? In return, what are some things that you are willing to do for the people in your life per type of love? So, in a romantic relationship, what are some things that you do for them that are only for them? And this doesn't even have to be like physical, sexual, right? Like, well, what kinds of access to your time and energy do you give them and only them? What would it take for you to restrict that from them and make them a romantic person that was a green light but is now a yellow light? Knowing the answer to these questions in advance will help arm you for your responses to when you notice red flags. They will help you recognize and become good at discussing what you're looking for, what you want, and what you're willing to offer, right? So the things that I'm asking you to think about, the things that we're pondering right now, are like a really good way to help you get folks like unfucked so that like they don't get you fucked up anytime you want to deal with them. All right, so Next week, I will do the last two kinds of love. I will introduce a new matrix to think about or talk about. So this one will actually be actual behaviors that kind of fall in each category for love. So sexual behaviors, friendship behaviors, social behaviors outside of your home, in public places, so on and so forth. And these are all meant to help you think about the things that you like, the things that you dislike, the things that you want to participate in, the things that you don't want to participate in, and how you want to set boundaries for them. And that is the overall goal and theme for this month, is how to set the boundaries, how to ask for what you want, and how to say no when it's appropriate. So that is what you have to look forward to next week and the week after that. Thank you for your question. Thanks for the 2 and 3 people who popped in but did not ask questions. I will talk to you later.